Hello, everyone. Welcome to Boulder Insights June session of Tableau Live. We're so thrilled that you all could join us. I know we're meeting on June 26th rather than June 19th, as we were off for the holiday to celebrate Juneteenth last week. So thank you so much for finding us and joining us today. What we're going to do is jump right into the agenda. We are so thrilled to have you all here. If this is your first time joining us, give us a 1 in the chat. If you've been here before, give us a 2, just so we could know who's new and who's coming back. So just go ahead and find that chat. Give us a 1 if you're brand new, 2 if you've already been here before. We are so thrilled to have you and that you found us. So Tableau Live is something that we do every month. It started during the pandemic. And really came about. We used to run the Boulder Tableau user group, and at the end of each of our Tableau user groups, we'd have a session that we called Stump the Chump. My esteemed colleague Chris Cox is with me today. He was the chump you were trying to stump, and so we took this, changed the name to Tableau Live, and have been doing it ever since. So what we will do is take a look at submitted questions and see if people who have submitted them are actually live on the call. If they are, we're going to start with those questions. We'll then open it up to open Q&A for anybody that has joined us. And we'll actually go back then to submitted questions if we have time for folks who weren't able to join today, but love to take part in the recording. So again, this is a community. This is a time for you to do whatever you feel comfortable with in the call. If you want to put your question into the chat, I have some of my team members that are watching the chat closely if I am talking and not paying attention to it. So feel free to put your questions into the chat or simply come off mute and ask your question as well. So with no further ado, we're going to jump into, I do see Miracle is here today, and we're going to jump into a conversation around calculations. So Miracle, do you have a specific question around calculations that you'd like to ask, or would you like us to go broader about all the types of calculations and things in Tableau?
Just broader.
Okay. Oh, all right, great. So Chris, I know one thing that you do have is a pretty cool tool we're going to give away to folks today. And why don't we go ahead and start with that? Then I will come back. I'm just going to pull up a workbook right now that I will then cover on the different types of calculations. I'll pull up that screenshot and do that. But maybe we talk about one of the most common types of calculations that we see and start from there. So I'll stop my share, let you do that, and then I'll pull up the overview of the calcs here as well while you're doing that. Oh, you're on mute, bud.
On mute, not sharing my screen, kind of all doing all So, when it comes to calculations, for the most part, I kind of like think about it kind of like Excel. So a lot of the same things that you would do in Excel, you do it actually do in here as well. You can look for different types over here, like if you're looking for a string piece, I do a lot of like left or right or trim. I use a lot of like lower and upper. So if you wanted something to be all actually lowercase or all uppercase. Tableau did add something called proper, which is kind of cool. This is what I actually call it camel case. So if you wanted the first character of every word in your string to be upper, then that would do that for you. But there's tons of different like calcs. You got to do like if then else's, that kind of thing, case statements. The ones that are probably the most powerful are these like a level of detail, which I'm not sure which section that's in. Just looking for a fix. So like a fix is like a level of detail calculation. So this one, there's a whole article on this. And if you can find that and send to people, that's probably the best one. That top 15.
Yep, I've got that right here, and I also.
This is a really good kind of calculation to use. Like, so for example, I like to do this example. If I was looking at, hey, I've got all these customers, I want to count the number of customers that I have. So I want to say I want to count distinct. That's going to give me my number. I want to look at it by year, and I'll make this back into a bar. And so a common question would be, let's zoom things in my way. So the common question would be, okay, of the 605 users that bought year one, how many of those also bought year two? So that can be done with this level of detail calculation. So I create my calculation and I just call it LOD, and I want to fix on the name of the customer. And for every customer, I want to get their minimum of their order date. So what was their very first one? So this way it gives me one by actually customer. That's it. So now I can just take that and I can drag it to color and it's going to tell me. So 466 of the 605 bought year one, 498 of the 605 bought year two, and so on. So those are great calculations. One that I use a lot, and this is what Heather was talking about earlier, is we tend to actually bucket things. So a lot of times if you have like ages, like in your data set, if you had ages of people, and you wanted to say, okay, well, I want to bucket everybody from, from 10 to 30 in one bucket and 31 to 50 in another one. How do you do that? So let's do this. Let's look at my customers again. I'm just going to do a new sheet. Let's say by customers, and we'll just do sales. So if I look at my sales, so generally I've got here, so Tableau has something for you that you can do, but it often doesn't do it how you want. So I got, we're looking at 25,000 down to, some customers are really, really small, right? So Tableau lets you do these things called bins. Heather, am I saying that right? I can never say that word right.
Bins is what he's trying to say. He's got just a little Southern accent that comes out when he says bins. So yeah,
you can do this.
B-I-N-S.
So Tableau suggests to do it at a size of 511. So let's just say we did 500. So we can create that, and that'll put that in here for us. So instead of our customer name, or instead of our sales, we're going to create sales bins, and we're going to count the name of our whole customers that fall inside of each one. Okay. So that's going to tell us what it is. But now we've got all this long tail down here that we really don't want. So we probably want to roll those up. So this would be a great opportunity for kind of one of those bucket calcs, right? So how I would do that is, I know I'm going to use sales, and we've got a little tool out here that you can use. So if you go to boulderinsight.com/Tableau, then you'll come to this sheet right here. So let's just say I'm working on my sales field. So we can copy it from the thing if you want. So sales, and then I want my spread to be, let's say 500. My maximum value is 0, and my greatest one, let's say it's around 3,000. Okay, so 3,000. So I generate, and that writes this for me. So now I can copy that to the clipboard. I can create a calculated fields, sales buckets, and paste. And there we go. So now instead of the bins, I now have those groups. So that long tail now rolls up nicely on the side of that. So these things make it super simple for you to do this. Where's my buckets go? There it is. So that's kind of a quick calculation overview. But basically anything you can do in Excel, you can do here. It's just going to be a little bit different as far as the syntax. Like your if then wouldn't have wouldn't have the word then, and it would have commas and parentheses and stuff like that. But it all works the same way. And if you ever get into one, if you're doing an if statement, you can just click on it and it should show you over here on the side. If I can ever get it to work. So you should be able to say if, and if comes in. So now it's going to show you over here. It's going to tell you how that stuff works. So anything you're using, it's going to tell you over on the side. And sometimes this gets hidden, by the way. So that little sideways caret will show you the expression. So is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's great, Chris. Let me go ahead. Are these features in all Tableau formats or just public or web-based? Oh, that's a great question. Those features, I believe, I haven't tested out the Tableau public format, but I believe all of that should work. I don't think there's anything in there that wouldn't.
The only difference in public is you're not gonna have access to all the data sources. So you only have a certain number of data sources you can load from a public. But all those functions should actually work.
Those should work. So I'm in our Boulder Insight Academy, and I'm going to pull up just a little introduction slide. I'm in our fundamentals course when we're talking about calculations. And I thought it might be helpful to kind of back into what Chris was just talking about with that. Let me make that more of a presentation screen. So when you're talking about calculations, Miracle, and anybody else that cares about this, there's really four types of calculations. The LOD expression that Chris talked about is actually a calculated field, but it's unique enough that I pull that out separately. So you can do calculated fields in Tableau, and that's what Chris was showing you how to build. Those were all calculated fields that start with an equal sign. When you see those visual cues in your data pane. So any of those calculations Chris created will now have an equal sign next to them, so you know that it wasn't part of your original data set. Calculated fields take place in the data source page and in the data pane, so that's where they're going to live. And it literally adds a new column of data when you're doing that. So I'm working down this chart here. And then from performance considerations, sometimes you'll see that a calculated field might slow down the way that the calculation's working. It could slow down your data. It's not common that it does. If that does happen, we often will go back to the original data source and add the calculation in there, but we prefer doing it in Tableau first. The other type of calculation is called an LOD expression. I put in the article of the top LOD expressions into the chat. In addition to the bucket calculator that Chris did, both of those links are in your chat now. And the LOD expression stands for level of detail. That again is a type of calculated field. And I capitalize the field because we're literally creating a new field, a new column of data. That too takes place on the data source page, new column of data. It has to go back to the data source to calculate, so it could impact performance as well there. Oops, let me go back. Sorry. And then the other type of calculation that's a built-in feature in Tableau is called a table calculation. And so I keep that capitalized because those calculations typically are going to be ones that will show up when you create them with a triangle on the measure pill when you drag it in. It only will take place on a measure. It does so in the view is typically how you'll build it. So if we wanted to do a percent of total, any kind of table calc. So Chris, I may have you pull up your workbook again, and we can show that. But those take place locally in the view, and it's based on whatever fields you have in the view at the time and when it's calculated. And what really matters about table calcs is the scope and direction that you're doing. So there's some nuances with it and some things that we could walk through at some point if you're interested in that. And so it's created based on the table in the view, but because it's local and in the view, it'll perform better. And then the final type of calculation is your grand totals and subtotals. And so when we're talking about those subtotals and things will actually is a feature that's built in to Tableau that you can pull from the analytics pane. So you have a data pane, and next to that is the analytics pane, and it will actually calculate totals for you as well. And because that's local, like table calculations are local, it's essentially a type of table calc, it will perform faster as well. So calculated fields, LODs are a type of calculated field, but a little nuanced. Table calcs and totals. So hopefully that makes sense. Miracle, do you need any other questions from that? I know it's a lot to take in. So.
No, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let me get back to sharing my screen. I will escape from here and get back to our presentation. So calculations, the next question that we had is from Anne, and Anne is here on the call as well. And the question Anne had was creating dashboards and stories with multiple data connections, Chris. So Anne, do you want to add to that at all, or is that enough to give us the clarity you want?
Well, I think it's enough to kind of give you the clarity, but when we have different data sources, I'm having a hard time seeing the connection, how to join the connection, which
Got you.
field on each one joins the connection.
Okay, so it's really about the joins and relationships and things, Chris, I think, and then building a
Yeah.
dashboard
I
from
mean,
there. Yeah.
there's no, I mean, the way I would tell you to do it is, like, so for example, if I was to make two different data sources and I know I need to actually join these together. Let's just do a new one here. If I'm not sure, I'm going to, let's see here. Let's just do Excel and we'll go grab. We'll go grab one here. So go to repository, data sources. And perfect. Okay. So we'll just use the old Superstore example. So, so if I'm going to join these two like a tables together. So I've got orders, and then say I didn't know how to join the whole returns. So most of the time, if your database is set up properly, when you pull it in, it's going to kind of figure out that join. So this one joined it for me. So I'm assuming yours isn't doing that. Is that right?
And that's really a relationship there,
Correct.
so.
Oh,
It
it's the same.
didn't,
Okay. Sure.
yeah, when I tried to look for the relationships, it maybe they were similar, but when I pulled the data in, it just seemed like it just pulled all the data from one data source, not both data sources.
Yeah, so typically what that is, so if you it's very often that you'll get like if you have the field and the field matches, I might do this. I might call this one orders, and then I'll create a new one, take the orders one, and I'll duplicate it, and I'll make this one to be my whole of returns. So I'll just like remove this and say I was kind of expecting these things to work. Okay, so I might say, okay, I don't have many fields here, so I've got these two different data sources. So I'll just open up a dashboard. I'll open up a sheet, and I'll say, okay, well, I got the order ID here in this one, and this is my returns, and then I want to create another one that is my orders. And I think I should be joining on this order ID, but I need to see it, right? So now I have, take that out. So order ID. Okay, so now I have those. So now I may come over here and say, I may just pull these in here side by side just so I can see them. And so sometimes you'll see, oh, well, they look like they match, but something's wrong. The most common thing I would see is, especially if you're trying to join like an ID or something like that, it's very often that one of your tables will have the ID marked as a string, and then the other one has like integer. So that's very common. So if you do this and you say, hey, I can see a 48 here, and I see a 48 here, but it doesn't join whenever I want it to join. So to fix that, when you're going into your, let's start with this one. Let's say I was going to join these two together, and I realized that was the case. So I may say, okay, I've got my orders here. I want to join in my whole returns. When I go to pick my join, I can pick the field, but let's say that they're different types. So I can go down here at the bottom and say I can create join calculation. So now I can say I want to call this one a string. And this is a string, and that one's like an int. So now it's going to let me do it, but this one will be a different thing. So this one I could say, create a join calculation. I can just make sure that they're both actually strings, or actually one may have a space on the end of it. So you may need to do a trim or something like that. But I think the best way to do it is just to pull your data in separately, and then just manually look at the columns and try to kind of figure it out. But doing something like this should actually work. Does that make sense?
I think, Anne, what may be happening, Chris is doing what's called a join. The default now in Tableau is a relationship, and it's a little tricky sometimes to see how those are connected. So, what Chris has done.
You can do the same thing with that too. It's just going to be down here. It's a different way, but you can still do the calculation. I can still
Yeah,
do
so you
that
can
same piece.
you can see that in the left bottom side when you're there. And relationships by default, that's called the physical layer in Tableau, is the where joins take place. Relationships take place on the logical layer, that it's automatically logically connecting things for you. But you should be able to see that. Let me draw on here.
You stop.
You should be able to see that right here. And when you do the join, what happens when Chris is doing a join of that information, he's double clicking on orders. That takes you down to what's called the physical layer. And then you would see your joins through by clicking on, if it's a, let me draw, if it's here in the, depending on what type of join it is, you'll see how those fields are connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the one question, the trend, when he was talking about the trend, making it a trend, does the trend help override, like if they have extra numbers, does it cut off at a certain number, or just
So
say what is
yeah, so the only thing trim does is really cut off spaces. So if you have blank
okay?
spaces, sometimes that will fix that. So, but there, you just gotta like, so if I was to look at it and I'll try to figure out whether they had, that was like a problem or not, then I may come in here and write like some calculation that said, okay, well, this looks like it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 characters. So I may come in here and say, okay, give me the actual length of this field. So I create this and I would say, length and len. And so now that will tell me, I didn't spell it right, but length apparently. But now I can be able to tell you. So now these are all, I shouldn't see sum, it should be just a discrete. So this should be a sum it all, so dimension. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so they're all like a 14 length. So if I was expecting it to be 13, there's probably a space on the end of it. Right? So sometimes it's doing things like that. This is the challenge with, you have like training data, you go through all this training and the training data is always perfect. But you get into your data and there's all these little things that could go wrong. And so you just gotta find them.
And
Does that
Anne,
help?
we can
Got it.
make sure to give you
Yeah,
a
that's
link.
helpful.
Yeah, at the end of this call, we can give you a link for a free 15-minute just with Chris thing to take a look at that. And if it's bigger and harder and you need some more support, we can, talk to you about ways that we can provide some coaching and things too. But we'll make sure to show you where on our website to get that free 15-minute session with Chris if you'd like as well to walk through your use case. I just know you can't share that with the public right now. You'll also note that I put in just the data model that started in version 2020 or newer in the chat. That also shows the physical and logical layers to kind of understand where things are taking place in Tableau. So I've put that in there as well. And I will also put in a screenshot just trying to understand if you've done a join or relationship. Sometimes people don't know, and your data pane will give you a few clues with that as well. So let me just put that in the chat. That might be another place to start with that. All right. So next question we have is from Patty. And Patty, I believe, is here as well today with us. That's great, Patty. We're glad you're here. Patty's question is designing for both desktop and mobile with floating containers. So Chris, this is one of your wheelhouses as well. I think you're going to enjoy that. Patty, is there any use case or anything in particular you want to share beyond that? It feels like a pretty clear question, but we'd love to hear your voice if you want to add more to it. I think we're good.
Sorry, it just took me a while to come off mute.
I totally get that.
I generally had set most of my business dashboards using tiled containers. And then when I went to Tableau conference, I saw a lot of the floating containers, which looked cool. And the very first one that I did on Tableau Public using floating containers, my husband clicked on his phone and it looked all funky. So there's like kind of two things. I know that you can set different views, and now I've played with that a little bit, but I hadn't encountered that with tiled containers before.
Yeah.
And then it became really frustrating to try to figure out where people are going to view outside of a business, where they might view your dashboards.
Yeah,
Great
sure.
question.
Yeah. I'll show you this one that we did. Definitely, Tableau is not a responsive. So if you ever dealt with any website technology, there's a concept called responsive. So it'll resize images, it'll change your change what's centered and that kind of stuff. Tableau doesn't really do that, so you've got to make it do it. I'll share my screen here. So this is one that we did, and definitely getting it into the right format. But so it's not just about moving all the data over. It's about really actually thinking the dashboard. So like, for example, there's some things I don't have on this actually dashboard. Like, so a lot of this detail doesn't make sense to have, because when you're on your phone, if I click pending up here and it filters, well, I can't see all this stuff down here. I can't see anything change. So you have to scroll to change it. So even this one, I would say, is not even built the way I would do it. I would typically do phone layouts, maybe with a scroll and a half. This is the scroll line. So the key is, and this is all actually floating. This is not tiled. Well, this is probably in a, I got some stuff over. I got a blocker, so you can't click it. But it's all set up that way, and it does take some time to get it set. But once you do, you're kind of set. Now the reason why your dashboard did not look good when your husband clicked on it is because by default Tableau leaves this phone icon on. So even if I go back to like one of these other dashboards, like that I haven't done anything with, like this one, or let's see, yeah, I have something. I have nothing in here that I've actually built. But anyway, let's just say it's this actually template. So phone is on automatically. So if I go over to it, it's just going to try to figure it out. So that's what it's going to do by a default. So that's not what I want it to do. So typically the first thing I do on every single dashboard, I go ahead and turn this off. So I go ahead and delete this. So there's not a phone layout. This will still look okay on your phone. You just have to turn it sideways. It'll still fit. But that's kind of the default I do, because most people don't need a specific phone layout. And if they do, it's really just something kind of simple. You want to give them like just the header. Like I would almost, I'll stop this one right here. I kind of wouldn't even show the rest of the stuff. But this is somebody asked for all this. But I would tell them just having the KPIs, having the general knowledge is all you would need on the phone. If you need to dive deeper, you should be at a computer. Does that help?
That is super helpful. I did not know that you could delete that layout, so that is wonderful advice. The other thing is, do you have a default size that you use? Because when I was playing with it, there's generic phone, there's iPhone models, there's all different. What do you generally use? Scrolling. I see this is long.
This one. I typically
Generic.
use the generic phone. That's typically the size. I have an iPhone Pro Max, so it's a big one. So this still looks good on there. You may have some. What you might have to do is, especially if you're using a background layer, is to make it bigger so you don't have any white space. Like this one, I didn't put a background layer in. The other key to this, let's see if I can find it. I'll probably have it.
Wouldn't you prefer to orient it to be more of the horizontal than the vertical? I know you have that option.
Yeah, you do. I don't know, but most people, when they have their phone, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't like turning my phone sideways to look stuff. I just want to get it quick and use my thumb to scroll. That's what I'm used to doing. So I typically do everything in this way. But yeah, you can switch it and show it that way as well, if you want to design it that way. So you can totally do those. I typically don't turn on the Tableau mobile app either. I like it just to be just in the browser, so it's simple. They don't have to open up a second thing. The other thing to note when you're designing these backgrounds, let's see here, I probably have some. Let me see if I can find it. I'm sure I do. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So this mobile lead status price and global CGI, you see these are going right up to the top. They're really tiny. So I have these set at 0, 0, and 1 by 1 pixel. So I'll put it 500 by 500, and then I'll bring it up. So this is a view that that I put that I hid in the view. So the rule is for you to have something, you can have anything that's on your regular dashboard on your mobile layout, but you can't have something on your mobile layout that's not on your regular dashboard. So if I so for example, this chart made more sense to have on actually mobile. So it made sense to have this one. So this was a much easier read than over here. These same numbers are, oh, this is too big then. Let me put this back to here. There, my handle's gone. So I had these same numbers are down here, right? I had these all numbers. There's your 309, there's your 323. So I just wanted these numbers. I wanted to be really, really clear what they were actually tied to. So if I want something on my mobile layout that doesn't exist, then I would need to make it and then just send it, and so then just send it to the back, have it actually hidden. So I would take this layout and I would just put it as 0, 0, 1 by 1, and then I would use the floating order and then send it back. So that way that's hidden back behind there and you wouldn't see it. But now when I go to my mobile layout, then that's something I can actually drag on and do actually something with.
That
Does
is
that
a
make
cool
sense?
trick, Chris.
Yeah.
The other thing I was playing with is, so generic phone, I think I just let the size be as it is, and I kept getting frustrated because I only had whatever was on the screen. And now I see that you set the height at 3100, and I think I didn't know that I could do that so that you
Yeah.
could scroll.
Yeah, if you do the default or fit all, then it's going to try to shove it in. So what I do, I just have it fit width and I just pick the height that I want. Now, the problem is if you pick two, so the problem is that if I change this, so here, watch this, this is going to stink. So if I go down to 2000, it's going to shove everything up for me. So it definitely takes some time, takes some planning to do it. Typically I will put things in containers to start with. I'm sure these are probably already in actually containers. No, they're not. Normally I'll start with everything in containers so I can drag it and move it easily. But this is definitely a thing that I would tell you that sometimes what I do is just make it super long and don't even worry if it goes way too long. Like here, I've got way extra space down at the bottom. That kind of doesn't matter. No one's going to scroll past anything not being there. So, because I've definitely fallen into that trap before where I didn't make my height big enough. And so then when I had to expand it, it's going to go and move everything down for me. So it'll work the same way. If I say, oh, I need this to be 5,000, then that's going to move everything down. And I'm like, now I have to go and touch everything and move it back up. So starting with a bigger size is definitely helpful. So yeah, those are just tricks I would tell you, but it's not
Super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
All right, before we go to the next question, I have a question for you all. Let us know in the chat how you found us. Did you meet us at the TC conference? Are we one of your, were you one of our clients? You found us on Instagram or LinkedIn or something. We'd love to know how you found us. So just put a little chat in there for us. That's always helpful for us to know too. Thanks for that. Let me go back to our questions. So we also have Jenna on the call right now, Chris. And so let me go to full screen with this. And she had a SQL Sprock linking question with it. So Jenna, I'm not sure if you're able to come off mute. I think, oh, she might have left. Jenna was here just a little bit ago. So yeah, I think I may move on to the next question, or do you want to address this a little bit?
I'll just say it shouldn't work anything different if you're linking to a store procedure. Whenever you go into your data source, it's just going to look like a table. So I don't know what the difference is, but it should link the same way like like a table would. So I'd have to see what issue you're having to know.
All right, Jen, I know we were here just a little bit ago. I'm so sorry we didn't get to your question right away. But yeah, we will show you at the end of this call how to schedule some time with us. We'd be happy to help you with that too. Chris, we also have Sarab on the call with us too. And one of the questions he had was around automating flows using Tableau Prep. So I'll hand that over to you. And Sarab, we know you're one of our buddies that's always here and that we work with as a client too. If you want to add any clarity to that, feel free to come off mute and tell us. So.
Yeah, so when you mean automating flows, you don't mean creating flows, right? You mean automating on Tableau server?
Yeah, so basically I was trying to automate flows due to some requests that I was getting. And
Yeah.
I found out that it needs some add-on, but
Yeah, you have to have conductor.
I just wanted to know how exactly, automating flows in Tableau goes.
Yeah, you have to, you have to, so Tableau Prep comes free with a creator license. But then if you want that to run on a schedule, you have to have conductor. So that's a separate add-on purchase. And to be honest, I've actually never used that. I'm assuming it's pretty simple. So do you guys have conductor? Or no?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. I think if you want to get a trial of it, maybe that might be the best way. I don't know if they package it with other products or if you can buy that by itself, but that's probably the one thing that I wish they wouldn't charge for that, because that would make it way better just to have it.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm not in charge of their pricing, unfortunately.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Great questions. And we're happy to, show any of the Tableau Prep things anytime. If anybody wants us to hop into Tableau Prep, we can absolutely do that. Next question, Chris, that we have, let me present again in the full screen. So best way to rotate axis labels when working with continuous pills. So this is going to be an interesting conversation around continuous pills are typically 95% of the time are going to be measures, right? But you can take measures and make them discrete. It's still going to be functioning with when it's a date, for instance. Dates would be a dimension that could be continuous or discrete as well. So it depends on what type of continuous pill you have. Is it a measure that you're currently using, or is it a date that's a continuous date? That's a way that we could help you look at those dates differently and break them down. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead and take this a bit, and then I'll jump in with some other thoughts around dates and things too around it. But we don't have Sharon on the call specifically.
I kind of got lost with you're talking about the dates. Tell me the question again.
Best way to rotate axis labels when working with continuous pills. And we don't have Sharon on the call to get clarity.
Labels. Well, there's a button for that. So let me share. Maybe you're talking about, okay, so maybe you're talking about, so maybe they're talking about like, if I wanted like order date and sales or whatever, and let's make this look like something. Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna rotate this, you just right click, and I think you just say format, and then should be able to, where is it? There's a way to, well, there's one way to do it for sure. I think with it being actually continuous, I don't know that you can. I think that if it's actually discrete, it happens very easily. That happens. I think you have even got an option for that. You can rotate label on those, but
so it's still a date value. Yeah, it won't. So this is the part I was talking about with dates, and I'll pull up a screen in a second around it. When you're working with dates, dates can be a date part or a date value. Date parts by default are going to be discrete parts of time. So all of your Januaries go together, all of your Februaries, all of your Marches, and it buckets your data that way. if you're doing a continuous date, which is a date value, it will default be continuous. That's the trend line. So Chris, if you go back a step where you were with the trend line,
I'll just go try
okay,
something quick.
okay.
doesn't-
With you'll notice when Chris had the trend line and he changed it to discrete, the trend line is still exactly the same, but now go ahead and click on that and make it discrete. It by default is continuous because it's all of your dates over time in a timeline, right? The shape of the trend still stays the same, but the labels, when you make it discrete, are what changes. So that discrete and continuous that you're changing in your drop down for dates is just changing the labeling of your axis, and that might be what you're talking about, but it doesn't change the difference between whether it's a date part that's bucketing my dates by month, by day, but whatever that might be, for all my Marches, all my Januaries. What it does is just change the way that it's labeled. That's all that it does. So that might be
It does one more thing. So when this pill is blue, so you'll notice I now can sort. So I can resort these into a different order. Right? So now I'm sorting my dates based on my actually measure versus if it's actually, so if it's a continuous, sort doesn't happen anymore because it's always
because you
in.
can't rearrange time. You can't reorder time. Yeah. Yeah.
I've tried.
Mhm.
You just can't.
If we could, we would, and we would not be doing all these Tableau live sessions. Probably, we'd probably be living a really interesting
Maybe I
life
did
for
this
time
one
travel.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could just keep having Tableau live sessions every day. Maybe we would just do that.
Good.
So
We have to have a
I
reason.
will share my screen real quick around date values. But Chris, if it's just a straight up measure, how would we do that? Maybe I'd let you keep sharing your screen. Oh, yeah, let me share mine.
I think it's going to do the same. I mean, it's going to be the same problem if you have it's a straight up measure. It's going to be the same deal. So if I had
So when we're talking date parts and date values, this is what I was talking about. The date parts, they are going to show up as a blue pill by default. And it's saying, here is my analysis with a shipping date. These are all my Januaries over time. If I would drag year onto color, this would break it into all my years. When I'm looking at a date value, this is that continuous trend line that we were talking about. So date parts are at the top of your drop down, date values at the bottom. When you click on the discrete or continuous, it doesn't change whether it's a date part or date value. It just changes whether or not it is treated as how the label is treated, if it's a header or an axis that's created.
hang on,
And
I
then
did
you
actually
have those
find
options.
something, Heather.
Okay,
kept
cool. Let
looking.
me stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, so I think this is what he's asking about. I think I know what he's talking about now. So I think it was the order of the axis. So you can do it with a continuous one. So if you right click and say format, over here on alignment, you can choose up. Or you can choose down.
Got you.
Or actually normal. So
that makes sense. What if you weren't using a date, Chris? We can
yeah,
show just how you
so if I was doing sales by, let's just say by name of customer, right? So there's those. I could probably do the same thing. So format, alignment, down. There you go. So same thing.
All right, I love it.
If I can do the same thing with these, probably alignment, yeah. So I can. It's already that way.
That was for Sharon. Let me go ahead and I will share my screen again, Chris.
Okay.
We still are doing fine with time. We've got 15 minutes to get through a few more of these. The next one that we have is about mapping. So I thought when I saw your Twibix file, you had some dual axis maps and some things in there. Do you want to cover that, or do you want me to open up Tableau and do it?
I mean, I can't.
I don't have it
Tell me
open yet.
it's a question.
Why don't you do it? I didn't have Tableau opened even yet today.
Okay.
I've been
What's the question?
working on other pieces, so. But it's right in there in that workbook that you had opened a second ago. I saw dual axis maps. So we have covered mapping before. Let me see as well. And there's more and more features. So Seth is not live on the call, so I'm not sure specifically what mapping he may be looking at.
Yeah, the one thing I'll tell you about maps is people absolutely love them. I tend to think that they're a really hard way to show data. So, and the reason why is because because you're combining two things together. You're combining size and some data, right? So like, for example, you get over here in these little tiny states. Well, if you got like a Rhode Island is your biggest problem, you're not going to see it because it's a small state, right? So now you're really hoping that your problems are in like the bigger states. Really, that's what you're going to see. So typically, if we use a map, we're always going to pair it with a bar chart, because if I told you to give me the top 7 of these, you couldn't do it. You'd have to hover over all of them and actually memorize these numbers. You know, that's kind of the problem. You couldn't do them in order. It would be tough to do. So typically, people want to know the top of something or the bottom of something to go make change. But for some reason, people are drawn to maps. They've got to have them. But I just find that they're really hard to do analysis on them unless you're looking at clusters of things. So if you're looking at, oh, I see all of my red is on the coast. Well, that's good, right? That's what I would want to see. But I mean, but just showing it by state or even by zip code, it's just too much. So
I do think people love maps, right? And people ask for maps and want them. So when we do maps, we don't ever have a map as a standalone, and we try not to have a map do more than it should. You know, we really only put 1 or 2 measures on it. So the one that Chris showed was called a dual axis map. And so we always would pair rankings of, if we do a map, we would also have a horizontal bar chart that allows us to see the map in that way. So Chris, maybe we can pull that up, backwards engineer the dual axis map, and then let's put the map in a dashboard and add a sorting with a bar chart just to show. So maps are great for showing location. What Chris was talking about is they're not great for doing much more analysis beyond the location. If you want to do a rank, you want to understand which state has the most sales and things, you would have to actually pair that with a bar chart, because bar charts are better for showing those ranks and things. So that might be a great way to do it.
So I'll just do, so double click on, so if you start like Tableau thinks for you a lot of times. So if I start with state or province, it's gonna choose a map. If I start with sales, it's gonna choose a bar chart, and then I add state or province, it's gonna give me that bar chart, right? So it's gonna do those things for you. So if I'm wanting to build a map, I start with the dimension, and then let's say I drag my, actually, let me get to, I don't like this data source. I like, I have mine that's already kind of curated. New data source. My superstore, that's what I want. Okay. So, all right, let's just go state or province again. And then we'll do sales is going to be the size of the circles. And then to make a dual axis map, you just grab your what's on your rows here, hold down hold down Control or Command, depending if you're on a Mac or PC, and duplicate it. Then just get rid of the color or whatever. And then on this one, I want to add in profit as my color. And oops, that's the wrong one. Should have done it to this one. To that one. I didn't do it. All right, hang on, that's not right. Should have been this one. So profit on color. How is that doing that? This one's on here. That's weird.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I see what I did. I drug my state off. There we go.
Oh, that'll do it. Not profit. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed.
So once you get those, so that and this automatically shows like the filled map. So then I just want to put these on a dual axis and do like that, and that does what I need. It's an angle. I'll make the color have a little border around it to pop out a little bit, and there's that. So now that would be my map, and I've got 2 different pieces I want to show. So now I want to do the opposite. I want to create my sales by state. So here's my sales by state. I'll flip that on its side. I'll sort it to top to bottom. And then I could just color it by my profit, which is basically the same thing I have on the map. And then I would just show my label for my sales, hide my axis, rename states. And then I'll pull these onto this dashboard. So let's throw in our map. Typically, I always do a whole 16:9 size. So I start off with that size.
Just PowerPoint size.
Yep. And so I've got there, I'll get rid of these. If you don't have legends and stuff on your view, it won't come in, but that's kind of nice. And then states, I'll drag those here, right? So now I have these set up. I could even pull in, I think I've got like a template somewhere here. Let's go grab one, I think, on one of these. I have a template or a skin, really. So Tableau template skin. Let's say I was using this one. So I want to copy dashboard item. Go back over to, I think it was over here. There we go. Dashboard. Paste. Okay. So now that's in there. So loading order, send to back. Now I've got my two things in here. This isn't the perfect skin for this situation, but I might end up making these bigger or taller or something. That's probably okay. And then my list of states, right?
I would do your states over in the left nav, Chris. I think it would look better
Sure.
there.
There you go. States and left nav. So, and I would normally have spent a little more, time on this to make it so it's perfect. Hide labels, a lot of formatting stuff, getting rid of the background color. I would also go into, you can format the front of the workbook just to quickly get all of your font to be white. That's sometimes an easy way to do it if you know you're dealing with like a background. I would, of course, delete the phone layout. And I really wish Tableau would default to having all these off versus on, because I'd spend more time turning off lines than anything else. I typically do this once and I use it as kind of a copy. So, and there's always one that never sets. There it is right there. So yeah, so let's just say that I had this one and then I had my map. I won't bother formatting this one, but let's just say these are my two things. And then I would just turn on my dashboard actions. So I would just create a all to all. And I want to do it on select, and I want to show all values whenever I clear. So if I wanted to see the top 5, I can tell you exactly where those are, or top 6, whatever.
Yeah, so the map is a really stunning view for people to see, and it's something everybody can understand. So great again for location, but the bar chart is really where you start to be able to do comparisons, right? So if we want to say those are my top 6, top 10, whatever we're looking at, you can visually see that by having that horizontal bar chart that's sorted, but you can also use your filtering action. Chris did a dashboard action where you can either click on the map or the bars and they'll filter to one another. So just a really great way to be able to pair those things. I did also put a help article in the chat just on how to use maps in Tableau. There's a whole lot more that we could go into. And we have covered maps in other Tableau live sessions too, so you can bookmark to those as well. So we have one last question today, but it is one that is pretty big question to ask. So I'll give a few pointers here, and I'll go ahead and present my screen, Chris. So I'll take that back and share my screen. And the question came from, I'm not sure who submitted this. It said Sarah, but I know that wasn't the case. That I want to understand the basics of Tableau and how best to learn the tool. And so the best way to learn Tableau is to play with it, we always say, and the best way to learn is with friends. So coming back to Tableau Live each month with your questions is a great way to do that. The other thing that you can do is start to look for some resources through Tableau to be able to start learning, and through us. So I have been pulling things from the Boulder Insight Academy. That's one place you could go. This is one of my favorite places I send new users. This is kind of hidden. Oh, it's a different Sarab. Thanks, Jordan. So it was one. I thought, I don't think that makes perfect sense that it was. So that makes sense. We have two Sarabs on the call. And so this is a starter kit that's kind of hidden on Tableau's site now, but it was one I used to use a lot when I was on the road training and when we would be bringing our team on. And what I like about this is it really talks about ways to orient yourself and understand visualizations. What is visual analytics? Even has a really great TED Talk that's in there and things. And then you start getting into building vizzes and all throughout it. And some are to read, some are to watch, some are to engage with. And so this is a great starting point I often send people to that's free. Another thing that you can do is go to tableau.com. There's resources and go to Learn Tableau. Go to the free training videos. That's a great place to start. And also check with your company to see if you have Tableau e-learning. Sometimes that's part of the licensing and things deals that your AE worked out with your organization to provide that. And then instructor-led trainings are always great to go to. And you can always go to our website. And we do have Tableau training opportunities if you have a whole team that needs trained that we can train, or if it's only one or two of you, these are the dates that we have for the different courses that we teach through the Boulder Insight Academy that leverages the Boulder Insight Academy that I talked about, and I've been pulling things from that you would get, access to our LMS system, all the recordings of our Tableau live sessions and other resources within the library that's there. So that is another place. Now, for those of you that might want some individual support, you can come to our website and you'll notice this little pill at the bottom of the page. This is also where you can go. And when you click on that, that should bring up Chris's Calendly. And what you can do is pick the free project consultation. And if you want to show your data to us, we can get a quick NDA in place. We can sign yours or you sign ours. Or if you feel comfortable just showing Chris in a 15-minute session, that's a free way that we can help you all out if you have things that can't be shown on Tableau Live. So that is it for today. Are there any other questions from folks? I've been keeping a close eye on chat, as has Jordan today. If you have any last minute question, feel free to put that in. All right. Otherwise, we encourage you to come back next month. You can just go to our Tableau Live page. That's right here. I'll put that in the chat. Y'all found us somehow. And you can sign up now for the next session that will be held on July 17th. So we'll see you after the 4th of July, same place. It'll be different time, same time at 1, but it'll be the third Wednesday of the month there, or second Wednesday of the month. So